Deep in the void between Mars and Jupiter, the massive Centauri warship, Stellar Dominance, hummed like a predatory beast, its crystalline hull gleaming under the distant sunlight. The alien crew had spent the last 3 hours watching Earth's primitive space traffic with what could only be described as smug amusement. Their advanced sensors tracked every human vessel, satellite, and piece of space debris with pinpoint accuracy, or so they thought. Captain Naxthor, with his iridescent scales and multiple eye stalks, let out what passed for laughter among his species. "Look at these humans," he gurgled to his bridge crew, "still using chemical rockets and basic ion drives. They haven't even mastered basic gravity manipulation." The bridge crew joined in his derision, their tentacles wiggling in synchronized mockery. But First Officer Kreval wasn't laughing. Something about the sensor readings bothered her. The patterns were too perfect, too predictable. After centuries of space warfare, she had developed an instinct for these things. "Captain," she started, her voice carrying a note of concern, "I believe we shoaled." The rest of her warning was cut off by a sudden alarm. A massive energy signature materialized less than a kilometer from their port side. Where empty space had been moments before, the sleek form of the UES Shadowhawk shimmered into view, its matte black hull seeming to drink in the starlight. The laughter on the Centauri bridge died instantly. Their sensors, previously showing nothing but vacuum, now revealed a warship that outmassed their own vessel by 30%. The impossible truth hit them like a physical blow. They hadn't been watching humanity's space traffic. They had been watching exactly what humanity wanted them to see. By the first stun, Captain Naxthor whispered, his scales paling to a sickly green, "How long have they?" The answer came in the form of a transmission carried on frequencies the Centauri had thought impossible for humans to access. The voice was calm, controlled, and carried an edge of steel that made several alien crew members instinctively recoil. "This is Captain Sarah Chen of the United Earth ship Shadowhawk. We've been tracking your vessel since it entered the solar system 3 days ago. Your surveillance of Earth's defensive capabilities has been noted and logged. Consider this a friendly reminder that uninvited guests should mind their manners." The bridge of the Stellar Dominance fell silent as the implications sank in. Humanity hadn't just developed cloaking technology that could fool their sensors. They had perfected it to such a degree that a capital ship could shadow them undetected for days. The supposedly primitive species they had been mocking had outmaneuvered them completely. First Officer Kreval studied the human vessel's configuration with growing unease. The weapon ports she could identify didn't match any known human designs. The hull material wasn't reading as any conventional metal or alloy. And the power signature, she quickly calculated the output and felt her secondary heart skip a beat. The humans weren't just showing off a cloaking device. They were displaying capabilities that should have been centuries beyond their reach. As the Shadowhawk maintained its position, its very presence a silent challenge, Captain Naxthor faced a decision that would likely reshape his people's entire understanding of humanity. The supposedly simple, primitive humans had just proven themselves to be anything but. And something told him this was just the beginning of their surprises. The question now wasn't whether humanity deserved a seat at the galactic table. It was whether the other species were ready for what humanity might bring to it. Like ghostly predators emerging from the depths of space, 3 more human vessels materialized around the Stellar Dominance. The UES Nightshade, UES Phantom, and UES Wraith took up tactical positions, forming a perfect containment grid. Each ship was slightly different in design, suggesting not just one breakthrough in stealth technology, but an entire array of innovations the humans had somehow kept hidden from galactic observation. First Officer Kreval's analysis screens were practically screaming with data. The human vessels were running power systems that defied conventional physics, somehow channeling energy without any detectable heat signature until the moment they chose to reveal themselves. Their hull compositions seemed to shift and adapt, making detailed scans impossible. Most disturbing of all, she couldn't detect any shield generators, yet her instruments suggested the presence of defensive barriers far more sophisticated than anything in the Centauri arsenal. "Captain," she said, her voice barely above a whisper, "these ships, they're not just advanced. They're beyond anything in our tactical databases. The energy readings suggest they could have destroyed us at any point in the last 3 days. The implications made her scales itch. How many other human ships might be out there, watching, waiting, completely invisible to even the most advanced alien detection systems? Captain Nyaxthor's command pad chimed with another transmission from the Shadowhawk. Your species has spent the last decade testing our borders, probing our defenses, and gathering intelligence on what you assumed was a primitive civilization barely worth your notice. Captain Chen's voice carried a hint of satisfaction now. We allowed this because it served our purposes. Every scan you made, every piece of data you collected, showed you exactly what we wanted you to see. The bridge crew of the Stellar Dominance exchanged nervous glances. Their entire mission, years of careful observation and analysis, had been compromised from the start. No, not just compromised. It had been deliberately manipulated. While your people were congratulating themselves on their superior technology, Chen continued, humanity was quietly leapfrogging past your current capabilities. We've had ships following your vessels, studying your technology, and developing countermeasures. The real question is, what are we going to do about it now? The tactical officer, usually stoic and composed, was now visibly trembling as new data scrolled across his screens. Captain, I'm detecting weapon systems on the human vessels that appear to be based on our own classified research projects, technologies we haven't even successfully implemented yet. This revelation hit Captain Nyaxthor like a physical blow. The humans hadn't just developed parallel technology. They'd somehow taken the Zentauri's most advanced theoretical weapons research and turned it into functional systems. His mind raced through the implications. How many other alien species had made the same mistake, underestimating humanity while inadvertently giving them access to advanced technology? The Galactic Council needs to know about this, First Officer Kreevil said quietly. These humans, they're not just another emerging species. They've been playing a game of strategy on a level we didn't even know existed. Captain Nyaxthor straightened in his command chair, his pride warring with his tactical training. The humans could have destroyed them at any time, but instead chose this elaborate revelation. It was a show of force, yes, but also a demonstration of restraint. They weren't looking for a fight. They were establishing their position for whatever came next. Open a channel to the Shadowhawk, he commanded, his voice steady despite the circumstances. As he prepared to speak, he couldn't help but wonder how this encounter would change the balance of power in the galaxy. The humans had just announced their presence on the galactic stage in a way that couldn't be ignored or dismissed. The age of underestimating humanity was over. The quantum comm channel crackled to life, and Captain Nyaxthor chose his words carefully. Captain Chen, your demonstration is impressive. On behalf of the Zentauri Empire, I formally acknowledge humanity's technological achievement. He paused, mandibles clicking nervously. However, I must inform you that a Zentauri battle fleet is already en route to this sector. They will not take kindly to this display of force. A soft chuckle came through the comm channel. Oh, you mean the fleet that just emerged from hyperspace near Neptune? Captain Chen's voice carried a hint of amusement. We've been tracking them since they left Zentauri space. In fact, why don't we patch them into this conversation? Before Nyaxthor could respond, his tactical display lit up with new signatures. The Zentauri battle fleet had indeed arrived, all 27 warships, led by the dreaded dreadnought Imperial Verdict. But something was wrong. The fleet's formation was tight, defensive, and surrounding them, appearing like predators circling their prey, were no less than 40 human vessels of various classes, all previously cloaked. Impossible, First Officer Kreevil breathed, her scales now completely pale. The energy requirements to maintain that many cloaking fields, it shouldn't be possible. She trailed off as new data flooded her screens. The human ships weren't just maintaining stealth fields, they were actively projecting some kind of containment grid around the entire Zentauri fleet. Admiral Sorthak's voice boomed across the command channel, but the usual confidence was notably absent. This is outrageous. You dare to trap an Imperial fleet. The consequences, Captain Chen interrupted smoothly, are exactly what we need to discuss. For decades, Your people have treated Earth as a backwater curiosity. You've run countless surveillance missions, attempted to infiltrate our computer networks, and even tried to steal our prototype technologies. Yes, we know about those attempts too. The bridge of the stellar dominance fell into stunned silence as holographic displays materialized, showing footage of Centauri-covered operations that were supposed to be completely classified. Missions that even Yaxthor hadn't known about. The humans hadn't just been watching. They'd documented everything. But here's what fascinates me, Chen continued, her voice taking on an almost conversational tone that somehow made her words even more chilling. At no point did any of your analysts ask the obvious question. Why would a species capable of detecting your stealth ships, tracking your movements, and countering your technology choose to do nothing about it? Did it never occur to you that we might have a larger strategy in play? As if to punctuate her words, new energy signatures began appearing throughout the solar system. Dozens, then hundreds of them, each marking the location of what had to be automated defense platforms that had been cloaked until this moment. The tactical display was transformed into a three-dimensional spiderweb of overlapping fields and weapon ranges, with the Centauri ships caught squarely in the middle. First Officer Krevol's voice shook as she reported, "Captain, I'm detecting quantum entanglement signatures from those platforms. If these readings are accurate, they've somehow created a linked defense network that spans the entire solar system. Any attempt to engage one platform would trigger an immediate response from all of them." Captain Yaxthor sank back in his command chair, the full implications finally hitting him. This hadn't just been about revealing humanity's true capabilities. This was about revealing how completely they had outmaneuvered one of the galaxy's most powerful empires. And something told him they were still only seeing the surface of humanity's true potential. A new voice cut through the tense silence, transmitted simultaneously to every ship in both fleets. "Captain Chen, you've made your point. I believe it's time we showed our friends from the stars exactly what they've stumbled into." The voice belonged to Admiral Helena Stone, and its calm authority made several Centauri officers instinctively straighten their postures. The space between Mars and Jupiter began to shimmer, like heat waves rising from desert sand. At first, the Centauri sensors couldn't make sense of what they were seeing. Then, as if a cosmic curtain was being pulled aside, an entire orbital installation phased into view. The structure was massive, easily dwarfing both fleets combined, its architecture unlike anything known to galactic engineering. By the void, First Officer Krevol gasped, her instruments struggling to process the readings. That's a Dyson ring, a functional Dyson ring. But the energy requirements would be... She froze mid-sentence as her secondary displays lit up with new data. The ring wasn't alone. Similar structures were decloaking at strategic points throughout the solar system, forming an interconnected network of what appeared to be energy collection and transmission stations. "Welcome," Admiral Stone continued, "to Project Sentinel. While your empire was busy watching our outdated satellites and chemical rockets, humanity was building something unprecedented. These aren't just defense platforms. They're gateways. You see, we solved the faster-than-light travel problem decades ago. We just needed to make sure we had proper infrastructure in place before making our presence known." The tactical displays on both fleets' ships suddenly expanded, showing hundreds of new signatures emerging from what appeared to be artificial subspace pockets around each ring. Captain Yaxthor felt his heart skip several beats as he recognized the energy patterns. They matched perfectly with theoretical models for dimension-shifting technology, something the Centauri's best scientists had declared impossible. "Impossible?" Admiral Sorthak sputtered over the command channel. "No civilization could have developed all of this in secret. Our intelligence networks. We're looking exactly where we wanted them to look," Captain Chen interjected. "While you were congratulating yourselves on decoding our internet and satellite communications, our quantum networks were operating on levels your sensors couldn't even detect. Every piece of technology you thought you were secretly studying was carefully crafted to keep your attention exactly where we wanted it." The holographic displays shifted again, now showing what appeared to be real-time footage from human colonies, not just on Mars or the Moon, but throughout the asteroid belt and beyond. hidden cities, shipyards, and research stations, all previously concealed by technology that made the Centauri's most advanced cloaking systems look primitive by comparison. First Officer Crevol's voice was barely a whisper as she reported, "Captain, I'm detecting similar installations activating in the Alpha Centauri system and Proxima Centauri," and she trailed off, her scales nearly white with shock. "Sir, they're not just in our solar system. Humanity has already expanded beyond it, completely undetected." The implications hit Captain Yaxthor like a physical blow. This wasn't just about humanity revealing their true technological capabilities. This was about them unveiling an entirely new power structure in the galaxy, one that had been built right under the noses of every major spacefaring civilization. Captain Yaxthor rose from his command chair, his decision made. "Admiral Stone, Captain Chen, on behalf of the Centauri Empire, He never finished the sentence. A blinding flash of light erupted from the nearest Dyson ring, followed by a gravitational shockwave that their sensors couldn't even begin to measure. For a moment, space itself seemed to bend. When the light faded, a new vessel hung in space before them. Its design was unmistakably human, but it bore the scars and modifications of decades of combat. The ship's hull was marked with symbols no one recognized, and its energy signature was unlike anything they'd ever encountered. "This is Captain David Chen of the UES Shadowhawk." A weathered voice transmitted across all channels. "Permission to report from 30 years in the future." The voice was older, harder, but unmistakably belonged to Sarah Chen's husband, who, according to all records, had been lost on a deep space mission 2 years ago. Admiral Stone's hologram showed the first crack in her composed demeanor. "David, the temporal protocols had to be broken," he interrupted. "The wave isn't just destroying worlds, it's erasing time itself. In our timeline, we waited too long to unite the galaxy. Even with the Centauri's help, we couldn't complete the quantum barrier in time. I'm here to make sure that doesn't happen again." The tactical displays on every ship suddenly updated with new data streams, 3 decades worth of battle records, scientific discoveries, and strategic analyses. The future Shadowhawk had brought back more than just warnings. It carried the sum total of humanity's hard-learned lessons from a war they had yet to fight. First Officer Crevol's voice shook as she processed the new information. "Captain, these readings. The wave doesn't just consume matter and energy. It's unwriting the fundamental laws of physics themselves. The only reason this ship could travel back is because..." She stopped, the implications too staggering to voice. "Because humanity's quantum barrier technology created a temporal wake," the future David Chen finished. "A sliver of protected space-time we could travel through, but it cost us everything to make it work. Earth doesn't exist in my timeline anymore. None of our worlds do." Captain Sarah Chen's voice carried across the command channel, steady despite the revelation. "Then we'll make sure that timeline never comes to pass. Admiral Stone, with your permission, I suggest we begin immediate integration of Centauri shielding technology with our quantum barrier systems. According to these future records, the combination is key to strengthening the network." Admiral Swarthak's flagship moved forward, its weapon systems powering down. "The Centauri Empire pledges its full support. Our scientists will begin working with your teams immediately." His voice carried the weight of someone who had just glimpsed the end of everything and found the courage to fight back. The future David Chen's ship suddenly began to shimmer, parts of its hull becoming transparent. "The temporal wake is collapsing," he transmitted. "We don't have much time. Sarah." His voice caught for a moment. "In my timeline, we never got the chance to." The transmission cut off as the ship faded from existence, leaving behind only its data core and the echo of a future they now had to prevent. Admiral Stone's hologram surveyed the assembled fleets, human and Centauri ships now moving to defensive positions around the Dyson rings. "Well then," she said, a hint of steel entering her voice, "let's make sure Captain Chen's sacrifice wasn't in vain. We have a galaxy to save, and this time we do it together." As the Dyson rings powered up, their quantum fields beginning to weave the first strands of what would become humanity's gift to the galaxy. a shield against the unmaking of reality itself. Captain Naxthor realized that the humans hadn't just been preparing for war. They'd been preparing to save everyone, even those who had once looked down on them. And somehow, that made their deception the most human thing of all. The alien bridge was silent. Where once there had been mocking laughter and smug confidence, now there was only the faint hum of their systems struggling to compensate for the sudden presence of the human stealth ship. It hovered in the darkness like a predator poised to strike, its sleek, black hull reflecting nothing, as if it was carved from the void itself. Captain Growl of the Takkar Dominion shifted uncomfortably in his command chair, his multiple eyes fixed on the view screen that displayed the human ship in perfect detail. "That was not on our scanners," he muttered, breaking the tense silence. His voice wavered, betraying the unease he desperately tried to suppress. On board the Silent Horizon, Captain Amelia Drake observed the alien fleet with a calm, measured gaze. She had been underestimated before, but never on this scale. The Takkar Dominion's arrogance had been their downfall, their mocking sneers fueling humanity's resolve. "Open a channel," she ordered, her voice steady, though her fingers tapped the armrest in a subtle rhythm of anticipation. The comm officer nodded. "Channel open, Captain." Amelia leaned forward, her expression hardening as she addressed the Takkar bridge. "Captain Growl, I believe you were laughing earlier. Something about humans being primitive, if I recall correctly." Growl's mandibles clicked in frustration, his confidence eroded by the realization that he was now at a severe disadvantage. We were misinformed about your capabilities," he admitted, his tone grudging. "Your technology isn't the only thing you should be worried about," Amelia cut in sharply. "You came into our system uninvited, mocking our kind and threatening our colonies. Did you truly think we wouldn't have contingencies, that we wouldn't defend our home?" Growl hesitated. His pride warred with the icy logic of the situation. His fleet, while formidable, was vulnerable. The humans had the element of surprise, and their stealth technology was leagues beyond anything the Takkar had anticipated. If this single ship was undetectable until it chose to reveal itself, who knew how many more might be lurking in the shadows? Amelia let the silence hang, her crew watching her with a mix of awe and admiration. She had always known how to use words as effectively as weapons, and right now, words were all that was needed to tilt the scales further. Growl finally spoke, his tone edged with reluctant respect. "What are your terms, Captain Drake?" Amelia didn't smile, though she felt the weight of victory settle on her shoulders. "Withdraw your fleet immediately. Return to Takkar space and relay this message. Humanity does not seek war, but we will not tolerate aggression. If you cross our boundaries again, you won't be dealing with just one ship." Growl clenched his claws but nodded stiffly. "Very well. We will retreat, for now." He gestured to his officers, and the Takkar fleet began to shift into retreat formation, their ships turning one by one and vanishing into the inky void. As the last alien vessel disappeared from the sensor array, the bridge of the Silent Horizon erupted into cheers. The tension dissolved, replaced by the exhilaration of a hard-won triumph. Amelia allowed herself a small smile, but quickly raised a hand to calm her crew. "This isn't just our victory," she said, her voice carrying the weight of conviction. "It's a message to anyone who thinks humanity is weak or divided. We are capable of more than they'll ever know, and we will stand united against any threat." Her words resonated deeply, not just with her crew, but with the millions of humans who would hear the story of this encounter in the days to come. News of the stealth ship's success spread like wildfire, inspiring pride and a renewed sense of unity across Earth and its colonies. For too long, humanity had been underestimated, seen as fragile newcomers in a galaxy of ancient empires. But now they had shown that they were not to be trifled with. In the days that followed, Amelia found herself reflecting on the encounter. She thought of the laughter that had echoed through the comms before the battle, the arrogance of the Takkar who had seen her species as lesser, and she thought of how quickly that laughter had turned to silence. Humanity still had much to learn about the galaxy, but one thing was certain: they would not be laughed at again. As the Silent Horizon slipped back into stealth mode, vanishing from even its own sensors, Amelia stared out at the stars. Somewhere out there, countless civilizations were watching, calculating their next moves. But for the first time in a long time, humanity wasn't just a player in the game. They were a force to be reckoned with. And for Amelia, that was enough.